There are three really clear things that characterize bold brands. They stand up, they stand out, they stand firm. So by stand up, I mean they have a purpose beyond profit. It isn't just about making money. Yes, they're commercial, but they have a purpose which is beyond profit. Secondly, they stand out. They dramatize that customer experience. They really bring it alive for customers. And thirdly, they stand firm. So they create very strong communities, very strong cultures that sustains the brand, sustains the experience, sustains the results over a long time. A good example, I think, of an organization that does all three of those is O2. And O2's purpose is connecting people with the things and people that they love. So that's its purpose. It isn't about selling phones, it's about connecting people. They stand out because they do some pretty unusual things around the customer experience. As you may know, they have a priority proposition which gives you access to the O2 arena to see concerts, rock acts and so on and so forth. You can get early access to Twickenham, for example, to the rugby, go and meet your favourite rugby stars, have a beer with them. So they create an experience which dramatises this notion of connecting people. The third thing is that standing firm, that creating that culture. And one of the things that O2 talks about is fans. And fans, they mean our customers who are advocates for them, but also their own people who are passionate about the brand. So I think those three things really sort of come to life with O2, and as you know, O2 has put on more new connections than all of its competitors combined over the last couple of years. Very successful. Yeah, so I think an example of an organisation that is really a small organisation that has created a dramatic experience is the Geek Squad. When Robert Stevens started the Geek Squad in 1994, he started with $200 and he didn't have the money to spend on marketing. So he used the customer experience, he used his people to become part of the brand, to really differentiate the Geek Squad. And the uniforms and the cars and the way they behave is really all about bringing alive the promise of the Geek Squad. In fact, Robert Stevens says that marketing is a tax that you pay for being unremarkable. But I think a small business has the great advantage of being able to do things in a different way from large organisations. They can take more of a risk, if I can put it that way, because they've only got to appeal to a smaller group of people in order to win. And so by being a little bit more extreme, being more differentiated, by doing some unusual things, they can do that because they can mitigate the risk and at the same time really differentiate from large organisations. So an example would be Umpqua Bank in the US, which is this wonderful Oregon-based bank. It's a community-based bank, and they set out to be more like a fashion store, like the Gap, rather than a bank. And they have something called handshake marketing. Rather than spending a lot of money on above-the-line advertising that nobody believes anyway in the banking sector, what they do is they have their people go out into the community and do small acts, random acts of kindness. So you could be standing in the queue at Starbucks, for example, getting to the front to buy your cappuccino or latte, and you'll find there will be a chip that would say, you know, coffee is on Umpqua today, enjoy. Just a small touch, but you walk out with a smile on your face talking to your friends about Umpqua. It's about how they grow their brand. Now you can do those kinds of things if you're an Umpqua. It becomes a bit more difficult if you're an RBS. Not that RBS would ever do that, of course. I think the first thing is to get really clear about your purpose. What it is that, if I can use the expression, floats your boat. You know? Because many organisations, as you know, have a purpose or a vision about we want to be number one in our sector by 2014, or we want to double our turnover, whatever. You know, that just doesn't excite people. It's really hard to get up in the morning and get excited about making money, unless perhaps you're the shareholder, the main shareholder. So I think the first of all is to say what really excites you, what do you get passionate about, and get clear about that. And you really need to be clear about it, because just having a sort of a vague or generalised sense of direction is really not enough. It has to be something which you feel really strongly about. And once you've got that clarity, it's then about being able to communicate that in a way which is passionate to all of the people that work with you. I think the next thing is running a business is a journey. Starting a business is a journey. And journeys are always more fun when you're traveling in good company. So find the people that share your vision, find the people who share your purpose, find the people who have a common sort of DNA, if I can put it that way, with you, and are really going to help and create value for you, for your brand. And I think the third thing then would be, never lose sight of what it is that started you in the first place. So many organizations become large and actually lose touch with the thing that really started them and become driven by quarterly earnings or the shareholders or the share price, and actually just forget about what it was that's got them excited in the first place. I think it really does depend on the level of commitment of the executive team. If the executive team is one around the customer experience and the agenda, and we are together committed to this route, then it actually makes sense to have a chief customer officer, because you're going to need somebody that can really drive initiatives, that can work across the organization, because it does need to be holistic. It can't be buried in one particular function or silo. So it makes sense to have a chief customer officer in that case. A good example of that is TNT Express. Chris Housens is the chief customer officer, chief experience officer there, and has done a fabulous job in actually creating leading edge methodology, measurement systems and so on, and rolling those out across the organization. If, however, your organization is one which is not that committed, perhaps the chief executive has said, we really need to do something about the customer experience here. It's one of those things we should be doing, so can you be responsible for it? Then in that case it's very dangerous, because one person gets saddled with the responsibility and everybody else washes their hands of it and says, well, that's your job then. And as I said, fundamentally it has to be holistic. In fact, Ronan Dunn of O2 has got this wonderful expression: it only works when it all works. So don't fragment it. Not so much contradicted, but I think one of the things that surprised me perhaps was that these brands don't set out and say, you know what, we need to design our customer experience, or we need to manage our customer experience, which of course, having written books called Managing the Customer Experience was a bit of a surprise for me. The experience flows naturally from the passion and the purpose that they have. So when O2 said we want to connect people to the things in life that they love, that then led to a lot of innovations, a lot of innovative thinking, a lot of differences around the customer experience, and it all flowed from that clarity of purpose, if you will. Yes, they did do design, and in fact we were working with them on it, but it really flowed from that purpose. I think so many organizations are saying, you know what, we've read the book, we need to do something around customer experience, so go do it. And customer experience in isolation, unless it's aligned with that clarity of purpose, that differentiation, that strategy, if you will, it just becomes another service program. Well, I would put it a different way. I would say, how are they treating them the same as their customers? What we found is a very strong correlation between the way that the brands treat their customers and treat their employees. In fact, they're almost like a common community. They share common values. There is that sort of sense of common community. An extreme example of this was Six Senses Resorts, where they've just developed a brand new property in Thailand. Wonderful property, 6-star property. And there's a fantastic swimming pool there and spa. But here's the point. The swimming pool and the spa is for the staff. So in other words, they treat their staff in the same way they treat their customers. Zappos, of course, creates wow moments for customers, but also wow moments for staff too. So I think it is about treating your employees in the way you want them to treat the customers. Nothing new in that. Well, Ryanair is a perfect example. I mean, is it bold? Absolutely. Has it differentiated in the airline marketplace? Yes, it has. Does it have a different kind of strategy? Yes, it does. Is Michael O'Leary a bold and brave leader? For sure. Do you love it? No. So that notion of standing out, yes, it stands out. Does it stand firm? It's got a pretty strong culture, I think. But does it stand up for anything other than making money? I don't think so. You know, I see there's a lot of relentless focus around making profits. I'm not sure there's much else in what that drives that organisation. I may be wrong, but I don't see that. And I think fundamentally, in order for organisations to be around in the long term, there has to be an affection for the brand. There has to be that sense of affection or fandom, as O2 calls it, for the brand. And my bet would be that if another operator came along, and it could well be somebody like AirAsia X, that is also low cost, but creates a fantastic experience. But somebody comes along, like an AirAsia X, low cost, fabulous experience, who are you going to fly with? Well, we've all heard about, you know, the difficulties that people like Waterstones, Borders, Barnes & Noble are experiencing. This book distribution is forecast to decline by about 25% over the next year or two. Gutenberg invented the printing press as we know it 570 years ago, and book reading really hasn't changed in that period. So if we think about the reading experience, it hasn't changed in 570 years. Now you may say, well, what about e-readers? What about Kindle? What about Sony and so on? Yes, they're electronic, but the process of reading is exactly the same. It's just chapter by chapter, it's sequential, you're reading words essentially. So when we wrote book, we said, well, these brands are all changing their markets, transforming their business models. What could we do which would be similar in the way we put the book together? And we came to the idea, well, when even if you think about reading, it's that the author chooses what you read, the distributor chooses what you pay. There's not an awful lot of choice, so how can we give people choice? So what we did was we created an iPad app. The book is actually embedded in the app. And you go into the app, it's a free app, you complete a survey, it will then show you the profile of your organisation compared to the bold brands. On the basis of that, it will recommend which chapters for you to read, 4 chapters, based on your profile. So already the material, the content is being curated, it's being in a sense designed around your need. You can also choose chapters on the basis of your function. So you can say, I'm in HR, and the app will recommend which chapters to read based on their relevance and salience for the HR function or whatever. Second thing you can do is open up the book within the app itself. And because you're reading it on an iPad, it's got streaming video, you can go onto YouTube, you can click on a link URL. If you're interested in knowing more about O2, for example, you can see Ronan Dunn speaking about that. If you read the Zappos chapter, you'll read the story about Alexandra Fans, one of the employees, and she talks about her favourite music. You can click on the link, listen to her favourite song. So it's interactive. You can go to whatever level of detail you would like. The other thing too, it's got some really cool photographs. There's a screensaver of the bold brands. So it's an entirely interactive process. We think we know it's a first in publishing.